It's been a minute, but I want to chat to you guys about the reality of making $100,000 a month as a 24-year-old. When I was starting my journey of making money online and just growing as an entrepreneur, I would always watch videos like these. So to be on the other side of the screen it's quite surreal. And there's plenty of people out there that make way more money than I do, that have done it at a younger age. But I would argue that I've done it in the fastest time that I've personally seen. In terms of how quickly I was able to go from working corporate to $100,000 in a month. To give you context, I'm a UGC creator now and a coach as well, as I mentioned. But my story wasn't always so linear, if that makes sense. I worked a corporate job, but even before that, I was working at a Whole Foods at one point. In high school, I was a brand ambassador for Hollister, which is a clothing brand, as some of you might know. And in being an ambassador for them, I would create content, receive packages, and I was doing UGC even before I knew what UGC was. In university, I did the same thing for Adidas. And then after uni, I was like so many other, I was gonna say Asians, but I guess young people in general, just going down the university pathway, wanting to make money, obviously wanting to go off, and be successful, but really it was just fear of doing something that was not traditional that made me just stick with corporate. So I graduated from the University of Washington and went to go work at AT&T at their headquarters in Dallas. So I was part of a little program there for a couple months. I believe it was June 2023. And then I worked until like January. January. But I was a salesman there, selling cybersecurity, fiber internet. And I was relocated to Houston, which is where I'm at now. And again, mind you, this was, a pretty common path. So I transitioned to Houston and I got there in January of 2024. Very quickly, and by February, I was able to become the nation's highest seller for that month. So I found success immediately, and sales has always been, in my nature, in my blood. But it was the weirdest thing. Like, I was the highest paid salesman for that month because I was off of a multiplier. So when you're new, you kind of have like a leg up. But yeah, I was crushing the quota and, doing really well on paper, but then I get my paycheck back, and this might sound out of touch, but I got $11,000 in a paycheck, which is phenomenal, which is great. But my normal paycheck after that was close to like $5,000 or $6,000. Again, $11,000 is a lot of money. I totally understand that. But the point is, if I just hit like out of this world numbers, and that was not going to be the standard going forward, how in the world could I live my dream life of being able to travel, purchase the finer things in life, spoil my family, and not have to wake up every day checking my bank account? Because that is the most anxiety-inducing thing that you can possibly go through. So again, had a great time, working corporate. Month of February 2024, crushed it. And that next month, I was looking at ways to make money online. So I found UGC. From there, fast forward a year later, some of you guys already know the story, but I was actually let go a year after being the highest paid or the most successful salesman for that month at AT&T. I said highest paid. In reality, for the nation, I just meant highest quota. So I think I was at like 470 something. The next person was closer to like 200 to give context. Um, and that being said, I was let go from my job in February of 2025. So that was only a couple months ago. Um, and so I launched my online business on January 27th. So a bit before that. And and from January to February, again, February I was let go. And then February, I went all into entrepreneurship. Called my mom, told her, and my mom had been dealing with cancer. Thankfully, just yesterday, we found out that her results were all positive, so she's free of cancer, thank God. But when I called her, she was just like, I know you're gonna be fine. I know it's all gonna be okay, which was really weird because, again, I always make the joke, but I mean, it's kind of true. As an Asian, especially as an Asian male, you're supposed to be like a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, something very traditional and safe. So to hear my own mother say that was just crazy. And it gave me such a boost of confidence. But I bring the whole cancer thing up because maybe it's because she was in the mindset at that point that life is very fragile and, might as well go after what you want to do. So February was let go. Made $12,000 that month. The next month I made $37,000. And then by April, I was visiting Times Square to have my company on a billboard. So things went really, really fast. By August of this year, I made $113,000. And then this month we're at $138,000. Again, I say all this because there's people making far more money than me at a younger age, but to have done it at such a quick rate, I don't know anyone personally that's done that. And I want to shed light on the mental aspect of it, of the pros and cons of it, and of course, how to get rich yourself, as I'm sure many of you want to replicate. In terms of the cons, because I know you guys are nosy, I would love to share the pros and be very positive, but I'm sure you guys want to know like the cons, because a lot of you watching this right now play victim. You play victim in life because it's easier that way. And when I was working corporate, it was the same thing every single week, complaining about this and that, other people complaining about this and that. So the cons of it, which I really see as a positive, but the cons of it is that everyone's going to start coming to you for their problems, whether it's money-based or just advice-based. And I'm never going to say no to a friend or, turn down the opportunity to give advice, but it is a lot of pressure naturally when people expect to come to you to solve their problems. And I love pressure because it really has molded me to take action. But when someone comes to you and says, just send me $1,200, it's just $1,200. It's nothing. It's nothing to you if you're making $100,000 a month. That's still money. That is still money, So the cons of it is what I would say is pressure. But I don't really like to focus on cons and whatnot, but I know a lot of people want to hear the cons to be like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't have to be rich. But trust me, it's so much better on this side. In terms of pros, and I talk to my friends about this all the time, accruing wealth is great. There's materialistic, advantages of it. You can get all the cool watches, a nice car and whatnot, but the real pro of it is that I can now afford to have an opinion. What do I mean by that? When I was working corporate, I couldn't afford to have an opinion to an extent, right? Everyone's putting on some sort of facade. You can't freely speak to your manager as you would, an employee now that, is part of your business. So all that being said, in terms of having an opinion now, I don't carry this. I can speak very freely, and that's to me one of the biggest benefits. That's not typically what you would expect to hear. Just reading some of my notes I put down here, but a massive pro is that the friends that you're around too are just it's great to have friends who are wealthy and who aspire to find success in life. I mean, again, I have friends back home who don't prioritize building wealth. I'm still friends with them, so it's not even that. It's just the fact that when you're around other like-minded entrepreneurs and you're in a group chat with them, and every text every day is just like, oh, I just made $20,000 today. That does something to your mind, and it does something where it triggers it to get to their standard, get to their level. And it's very nice not having to penny pinch around your friends. And imagine going out with your friends to a nice lounge and you guys split a table, and then you're having to press your friends, oh, can I get the money? Can I get the money? Can I get the money? Friendships, marriages, a lot of times the problems stem from a poor financial situation. So being around friends who are also, of wealth and, aspire to, max out financially, it's just great because there's less pressure on yourself to be the one providing. All that being said, I'm sure you guys want to know how to get rich yourselves. And I don't have like a one-step plan to do that, but I'm just going to share my mentality and my side, my perspective of it all. And this might be a hot take to some people, but in reality, I know it's true because I was thinking like you guys only a couple months ago. You have to despise mediocrity in the sense that everything around you is trying to drag you down to second-class street. I remember, when I was working corporate in that bleak office building with no lighting and, everyone's always coughing for some reason. I don't know, I don't get it. But I remember one time I overheard this guy saying like, oh, everyone that does TikTok shop or makes videos online for content is so scammy, that's so stupid. I would never do that, What a limiting belief to have. What a terrible mentality to have. And I don't surround myself with anyone that I don't aspire to be like. I don't even know that guy's name. I just overheard it. I don't know. Maybe his name's like Buford or something. I don't know. Some random guy. I don't know. He looks like a Buford. But all that being said, you have to have a bulletproof mentality and not allow mediocrity to seep in. Little things like, playing video games or constantly going out to drink with friends. I don't remember the last time my friends I've never sat down with my friends and just played a video game. We're always talking about something productive, not just like business, but oh, you should get that property, or oh, you should travel here, or just talking about aspirations and goals. Whereas I have other friends who, are struggling paycheck to paycheck, and their immediate action is to invite me over to play FIFA. Doesn't matter when I beat you 10-0. It doesn't matter. What does that really do? Because we are now of the age where you do not have enough time to not take action. So the biggest thing that I've seen, especially with other business owners and people trying to make it in terms of entrepreneurship and accruing wealth, is they have such poor limiting beliefs. But to consult you there, I guess come for you. I was the same way. I was the same way before. So you have to be extremely diligent and cutthroat when it comes to removing yourself from friend groups that don't give life to you, right? And I used to think that was super mean or selfish and I want to be the guy that's friends with everyone, right? But now I realize that's a disservice to myself. If I'm constantly hanging around people that, skip going to the gym or don't prioritize, their financial well-being or their health, I'm naturally going to drop my standard down, right? Whereas my friends now, they're going to the gym, running businesses, taking care of their families, overall, really pleasant people to be around, social, those are all signs of self-respect, and I want to be around people like that. And I guess that might come off as elitist to some people, but in reality, I just call it having an extremely high standard for myself. And to people that don't understand that, a lot of people have said like, oh, you're quite picky about things. You're very picky, you know? And I used to get defensive over that. I used to be like, oh, no, well, we don't have to do what I wanted. And, you know, it's like, but I'm extremely particular about the people I surround myself with and the things that I do, because why would you not be? You know, why would you not be? So we talked about pros and cons of it all, how to get rich yourself, and I want to dispel one common myth about accruing wealth. Money only solves money problems, if that makes sense. A mentor of mine told me that he organizes his life according to 5 areas. I've kind of made a variation of it, but it's spiritual pursuit, because you never reach a destination with your faith. So spiritual pursuit, health, family and friends, career, and then alternate income streams. Money only solves about two of those. So you still have spiritual pursuit, health, and family and friends. Money doesn't really have to deal with that to an extent, right? It doesn't solve that issue. You can't just buy that. So the last thing I want to touch on before summarizing it all is, where does God fit into all this? Because I realize if this is your first impression of me, I might sound super money driven and just, you know, only focused on money. But I don't want to be known as that. When all is said and done, my goal is to be known as a great Christian, as a man of faith. So how does God fit into all this? And you've probably heard it before. A lot of Christians say, oh, you know, money's evil, and they use that as a crutch to not even try. Oh, God's going to provide for me. But who pays for the mission trip, right? Who pays for the mission trip? You need money to do that. So I would gladly take on that role, because I'm still playing a part in God's kingdom. And again, when all is said and done, according to the Bible, everyone has different roles. Some are leaders, some are musicians. I believe some are gardeners in heaven, in the kingdom of heaven. So everyone has their own unique roles. My role here on earth, I wouldn't mind being the one that can financially support a mission trip or funding a church, right? I would not mind that. So God never said, you know, don't become wealthy. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil, not money in and of itself. Because as we all know, money in itself, like, it's just paper. It's just paper. So to close out, money only solves money-based problems. You know, I still definitely want to work on my physique. I'm still skinny fat. I need to definitely improve. But good thing I'm around people that prioritize their health. You know, it's only a matter of time before I'm also, you know, I also have my dream physique. And yeah, to close out, like, I'm still not anywhere where I want to be in terms of my relationship with God. Now that I have the money side of the equation figured out, I'm not gonna lie, it does give me a lot more time to focus on, you know, hobbies and, you know, even going to the gym, or I don't know, like taking the time to think about a really thoughtful gift for my mom or, you know, my dad and stuff like that, and, you know, planning out really nice dates and having time to do that than always constantly being rushed. But yeah, if money is your goal and it's your goal just to make money, it's actually a lot easier than you think. You can make $10,000 this month. It's really quite simple. If you can make $100, you can times that by 10, make $1,000. If you make $1,000, you can make 10,000. And 10,000 is just the start of you wanting to make a lot more money. Again, I'm a person sitting on the other side of the screen right now, but in February when I was let go from corporate, I was just as scared as the next person. I had so many limiting beliefs on me. And my bank account has grown today in accordance with my mentality now. Whatever it is that you want in this life, it can be yours. But first and foremost, you have to strip yourself of any limiting beliefs. Once you can do that, you can do anything.